Good morning, Peter. How are you today?
I'm very well. Nice to meet a fellow Peter. We were just musing on how few of us there are in the world.
Yes, you can't get too much of a good thing. That's what I say.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But Peter, welcome to the Business Spotlight. Thanks very much for sharing your time this morning. Could we start by, could you tell me a little about your background and your business, please?
Sure, absolutely. So I am a product of I suppose a past degree in Queen's University. For those who know Queen's University, there's what's called a wailing wall, which is where all the exam results come out. And I actually think it's the people who get the firsts and the two ones are doing the whaling because they're so high standards. The rest of us were all down the other end of the wall where it was, my God, my name's on the list. So I was one of those, my God, my name's on the list people. And I just managed to kind of scrape through that, and I got a job by sheer coincidence in a diagnostic company packing boxes. If it had been an automotive manufacturing company, we would be talking today about automotive manufacturing. Um, and I worked in that company for about a year and a bit, but very quickly had the chance to move to an international pharmaceutical company now, part of GlaxoSmithKline. And they sort of did what they do with all greenhorn executives. They drop you in at the deep end, move you around the globe. And I did that. I spent time in Cairo, time in Jakarta, back in London, North Carolina. Great experience. Really trying to understand the healthcare business in its entirety, and topic of another day. Lots of learnings along the way. But around 2005, the opportunity presented for lots of reasons for me to come back home to Northern Ireland and start Diaceutics. And if I just explain, so what Diaceutics is doing today is really helping to identify patients with particular types of cancers before they know it, and directing them really quickly into care. And all of your listeners and watchers will know that, we all know people who have that emotional roller coaster of cancer. So some ability to intervene in that roller coaster and direct people onto the right treatment really quickly is what we do at Diaceutics.
And it's a vast target market for people that get affected by cancer and diagnosis, etc. So how do people end up getting in touch with Diaceutics, and how do they become a client or avail of the services that you
Well,
offer?
I think so. We are using, I would describe as an intermediary to get to the patients, which is the pharmaceutical industry and doctors. So if you think of the pharmaceutical industry, they call on doctors. So ultimately, pharma companies are our customer for buying what we do. But obviously, we're very much about identifying patients. And I say identifying, we're not identifying them by name, but by their disease type. And it's all anonymized data, all managed through the right forms of compliance. And we're acquiring that, what I would describe as that diagnostic data, the diagnostic pathway of those patients, and then flagging through the pharma companies to their physician that that patient has been diagnosed with a particular type of cancer and equally is a candidate for a particular type of drug. Now, you would say, well, don't the doctors know that? Well, the doctors are very busy. We all know that. This is about bringing them information faster, earlier, more accurate, more precise, so that the physician, the next time he sees the patient, saying, look, I've been alerted that you have this particular type of cancer. We have this particular type of drug. Let's move you on to that treatment quickly and not bother putting you on standard chemotherapy or some alternative therapy, which you could be 6 to 9 months before you know whether that's going to work or not.
And after having spent time around various locations in the world in your corporate career, what was it that motivated you, Peter, to launch the business back in Northern Ireland?
Yeah, I someone described me once as a puddle jumper. And I said, what the heck's a puddle jumper? And it said, you have a tendency to run into the middle of a room or a meeting and jump in the puddle and splash everybody and then run out. I think what he was saying to me was I was a disruptor. And I think that's right. By nature, I look at things and opportunities and situation. I'm saying, what's the most disruptive thing? Not for the purposes of annoying, but for the purposes of improving. And in all the time that I was working in the pharmaceutical company, and I love the healthcare model. I love what it does. I love the difference it makes to patients. Had the opportunity to be part of the birth of the new HIV products that were coming to market when AIDS was the epidemic of the time. Um, but I always, in my head, it was always, is there a better way to do this? Is there a cheaper, faster, smarter way to do this? And that, whilst it's good in big corporate, it tends to lend itself to stepping out of big corporate and stepping into more of an entrepreneurial role. And I got the opportunity around about the age of 35 to take what I tell everybody is my gap year. I spent a year at MIT in Boston, surrounded by, some of the most ambitious and smart and energetic people who were starting businesses. And it gave me the courage to say it's actually okay to try, and it's okay to try and fail, because out of that failure comes success. And actually, prior to Diaceutics, there was a failure. I ran another company for 7 years, venture capital backed. We ran out of money. It was the best MBA that I could have had, because it taught me what to do, what not to do the second time round. So I think I'm a disruptor, and I think I found my tribe, and I found my home in Diaceutics, because we are absolutely disrupting the healthcare thing and finding those patients and getting them treated quickly.
Yeah, I love the puddle jumper. I've stored that one for future
Yeah.
reference. And what would you say have been the most significant insights that you've gained since launching Diaceutics?
Well, look, I some of these are going to be really twee, as in what everybody says, but maybe by saying them again, I'm reinforcing that they're true. So people and culture. Okay. And I often say to my team is, when I started Diaceutics, first of all, there was no business plan. Don't tell anybody that, but there was no business plan. Okay. It was, is there a business here? And I started to explore that, and I got a few people working with me. But if there had been a business plan, there wouldn't have been a chapter on culture. It just wouldn't have existed, because it wasn't in my head. But over the years, I have realized that the most important thing has become the culture of what the company does, and the passion and the mission. And when you walk through the doors of Diaceutics, you see two things, literally in really big, bold writing. You see the words better testing, better treatment. So we believe that by better testing people, we're going to give them better treatment. And the second thing you see is a screen currently presenting the whole of North America, which is flashing up dots. And those dots are people that we're finding today that can be turned into better treatment opportunities tomorrow. So the entire ethos of the business pulses through the company and through the ethos. And that has reversed itself into the type of people who work at Diaceutics, people who are mission driven, passionate about what they do, want to change the world. And whilst everybody in all walks of life are making huge contributions, I think in Diaceutics, what we're really, really close to the end product of what we do by really changing people's lives. And we tell a story in the company of a farmer from Iowa. We don't know their name, but we were referred to the fact that we identified that patient. We got that patient in front of the doctor. They were 45 years old, had 3 children, diagnosed with lung cancer. We found them a couple of years before they would have been found. That patient got onto the right treatment, and their life has changed. The many, many more Christmases spending at home with their lives. Our company believe that. And so I think the culture of that mindset has become a really, really important thing. And someone said to me once, Peter, culture is what's left in the room when the CEO or the founder walks out. Very wise words, because you can't buy it, you can't acquire it, it happens. And if you get it in a business, if you can manage to create that sense of purpose, then it becomes the music that stays in the room when you walk out. And I think that's become the most important thing.
Fantastic, and it's a great description of culture in a business. What I tend to find is smaller businesses think, oh, that culture, that sort of thing, that's for bigger businesses, but it's so not true. If you get it right at the start, you never know how big you're going to become. Even for somebody working on their own, self-employed, the
Yeah.
culture element will wash through
Yeah.
to anyone they come in touch with. So fantastic, love
Yeah.
that.
There's one little thing at the end of that, and that is, when we're talking in the company and at a management level, and a phrase that keeps coming up so much so that whilst we haven't written it down anywhere, it's in the drinking water, and it's don't be an ass. So if you're talking to an employee, don't be an ass. If you're talking to your boss, don't be an ass. If you're talking to a customer, don't be an ass. But actually, it gets inside your head and things. You have a choice in business. You can either be an ass or you can be a really nice person. And I think most of the people in diaceutics, I think, thankfully choose to be a nice person, and we're not asses. We have lots of problems, but we don't tackle them by being an ass.
Brilliant. And so is there anybody that comes to mind when you're contemplating success or you think about success?
Yeah, I get this question a lot, and obviously I've like all of those entrepreneurial hunters, I've studied the great and the good. Actually, the people who impress me most are the little guys, and so I'm going to evoke my own grandfather, who started a business in Belfast, started with a wheelbarrow down in the docks and unloaded ships and turned that into a family business which fed families and all that stuff. And in many ways enabled me to have the freedom to get an education and give me the freedom to even contemplate that entrepreneurial world. But I think my grandfather, who's called John McCann, I think represents all the other little guys in the world who start businesses and have to build something from a white piece of paper. And actually, I was earlier today was at a meeting with another guy who started his conversation by saying, "I started with £300 at the top of what the Shankill Road in Belfast, and he has built an empire." And I'm agog at those people because they don't necessarily have all the sophistication that comes with big business and Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. What they have is they roll up their sleeves and get stuck in. There's where the real endeavor of entrepreneurialism lies. And it's not to decry the Steve Jobs and the Jeff Bezos of this world. Of course, they are superstars, but the real micro stars of the economies that you and I live around us. So I'm going to evoke John McCann as my hero.
Superb. What's been the biggest obstacle, Peter, that you've encountered in your business journey so far?
What's been the biggest obstacle? I think funding is probably, when you're starting a business, funding becomes the thing that can make you make stupid decisions. I'm not saying it. Getting funding, you tend to do things chasing money that really distract you from the running of the business. And whilst every entrepreneur will say it's really important to fund your business, absolutely. But I think if you get the funding right early on, and I don't mean you have to go and, get millions and millions of dollars into your company, but think about the funding early on in your business, then you get the freedom to do what you love, which is go and build a business. And some of that funding might come from your customers. So your customers might be paying you and you're funding your business. In the case of Diaceutics, I took a decision not to seek external funding early on, and I went down the customer pays, and whatever the customer pays, we shared that amongst a few of us. Generally me getting the least of that share, actually, for a whole bunch of years, until such times as we could then use debt funding. And then from debt funding, we went straight to list the company on the London Stock Exchange where we raised finance. But that was after 12, 13 years. So funding is the freedom to allow you to do what you love. And if you get that right and go into it realistically saying, how am I going to fund this? I think the rest flows.
And what would you say, what really gets you going today? What's your biggest source of inspiration today?
Well, I think I suppose when I'm asked this question, I think I come back to that thing about the white piece of paper. It's a privilege. So few of us are kind of work in that entrepreneurial environment. In fact, somebody told me it's like less than 5% of the planet are people who are brave enough or mad enough to go out and try and start a business. So already you're in a very rare club. And then if you manage to make it, whether you are setting up a corner shop, or whether you're doing, sending rockets to Mars, if you manage to make that journey, it is a privilege. It is actually a privilege. And you have to say that to yourself. And that is, I'm not here because just of the sweat of my brow. I'm here because, your partners, your family have supported you. I'm here because others have come along and believed in you and given you the credibility and the credence and allowed you to make the mistakes. And so we are all the product of the sum of the parts on it. Yeah, you have to be in the center, pushing and endeavoring to climb through the hoops, but we are there as a result of the ecosystem and support ecosystem around us. So what's my inspiration? To know that around me, I have had that benefit and the privilege and the opportunity to do what I do. And again, time and time again, you will hear this, your listeners will hear this. If you do what you love, you're a really lucky person. I'm a really lucky person.
And if you could go back and dish out some advice to your 18-year-old self, would you listen, and what would the advice sound like?
Well, we'll avoid all the usual topics about things like girlfriends and things like that. So I'll stick with business. Um, it's a tough one. I think at the end of the day, is trust your gut. Okay. Generally, by the time you start to go into a business world, you've got a lot of the life experiences are probably inbuilt, but you don't necessarily trust them. You don't trust yourself. You're a little bit unconfident. Yet the things, the choice of friends that you've made along the way, the goodness that you've done along the way are things that you can imbue into business. So I think the thing I would say to my 18-year-old self is trust yourself a little bit more, Peter, to do the right thing along the way. Don't be so hesitant. Be a little bit braver earlier. I faltered a couple of times when I thought, should I? And I went, no, I'll just stay what I'm doing. And I should have perhaps been a little bit braver, but that would have come from trust. And of course, that's about confidence and everything else. But if you're not in, you can't win. And you can sit in the sidelines and talk about, well, I should have done this and I should have done that. But if you don't jump in, then you don't know.
And we're not for only about 10 days left or so of 2023. So with 2024 just around the corner, what new or upcoming developments or aspects of your business are you most excited about into 2024 and beyond?
Well, look, I think I probably speak on behalf of the entire planet. I'll give myself to say that we're all delighted to see the end of 2023. What a sort of a crap year for the world. So before we do anything within the mold of Diaceutics, 2024 allows us a fresh start, I think, to think differently about the world and about what we're doing. And I am by nature an optimist. Perhaps that comes through. In terms of our business and our sector, and Diaceutics as a company, 18 years old, roughly a long time to be an overnight success, but we are really only at the beginning of what we can do. And I say to those who listen to me, I think Diaceutics is a really interesting company in healthcare. I think we can be a really important company in healthcare, and that's about scale. So in 2024, I think the things to look out for and what we'll be doing is very much think of how can we take this gem of what we've built and make it really, really scalable. And by that, I mean really making an impact for millions of patients. And that's a huge claim, but I believe we can do it. And that's what 2024 is going to bring.
Fantastic. It sounds like an exciting year ahead, and wow, what a great cause at the root of everything. So Peter, if somebody has liked what they've heard and would like to sort of hear some more or find out some more, what would be the best way for them to go about doing so?
Yes, sure, absolutely. Look, the best thing to do is there's a couple of ways. Just write it in info@diaceutics.com. There are people who are manning that all the time. Or if they particularly want to reach out to me, peter.keeling@diaceutics.com. And maybe reference the interview, business spotlight interview in the headline so that I don't think it's junk mail, because I get a lot. But if anybody wants to reach out and wants to know more, I'm more than happy to impart. As you will know, because you've interviewed a whole bunch of us, none of us in business are shy of telling the world about what we think.
So true, so true. And it's great. That makes my job really easy. So Peter, I could literally chat all day to you. Unfortunately, can't do that. All it remains for me to say is thank you very much for sharing your story and your time. It's inspirational and motivational in equal measures. So thanks again. I wish you a happy, peaceful Christmas and all the success for 2024 and beyond. Thanks very much, Peter.
Likewise, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to you today. Okay, bye-bye now.